Now we have a key topic for organization, which is customer experience. So I would like to introduce this roundtable. The title is Segmentation Built on Financial Behavior, an AIB Case Study, with Roisin Mason, who is Customer Planning, Insight and Research Manager at AIB, Aoife Maron, who is Director at Red Sea Research and Marketing, and Ted himself as a panelist who was heavily involved in this project. So I think our panelists will join us.
And this session will be moderated by our colleague Lucy Watts at BVA BDRC, who's beaming in from London. I think we have Aoife joining us from Dublin and Roisin joining us from Belfast. So we're coming at you from all over the place. Hi guys, hi from Paris.
Hi, hi there.
Hi.
Take it away, Lucy.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you, Ted, for the introduction. I'm delighted to be hosting this session today to showcase the fabulous collaboration between Red Sea and BVA Nudge Consulting for AIB, and I'm really interested to hear and to share how that collaboration has worked, because I know it can be a challenge working with multiple agencies we're seeing, but I think I get the impression from the chats we've had this is an absolute dream team. And this work that we'll be talking about demonstrates how by integrating behavioural science at all stages of the research process, so not just at the back end, but from thinking about the recruitment screener, the discussion guide, questionnaire development, all the way through to delivery of results, you can develop a better understanding of and segment actual behaviours rather than just the claimed behaviours or indeed claimed intentions. So the team will share how they use BSI principles to improve the effectiveness of communications to the target audience, utilising BVA's drivers of influence to motivate future behaviour. In this case, encouraging consumers to take a more proactive approach to their financial planning. So let's get started. Over to you first, Roisin, if I can. Can you talk us briefly through the background to the project? So, how did it come about, and what was the specific business challenge that you were seeking to address?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lucy, and great to be here. Thanks. The AIB business was embarking on a new joint venture to develop our own AIB branded protection, investment, and pension products with a view to growing our financial planning business. So the ask for this piece of work was really to help inform the development of the proposition design and the associated marketing strategies, etc., that would unlock the market potential to drive the scale that was what the business was seeking. However, the known challenge in the Irish market, and I'm sure many other markets around the world as well in relation to these products, is their high levels of consumer inertia and therefore obviously lower market penetration as a result. So one of the things that we really had to be cognizant of was that the lingering overhang of the previous financial crisis, of course, COVID, and then the cost of living crisis, which was sort of just came after actually our initial phase of this research, and we did some further work to sort of tap into that as well more deeply. But we wanted to make sure that we were taking all of that cultural context into account when we were seeking to really understand the deeper drivers of inertia in this category.
Wow, so lots of challenges there, lots to think about when it came to design. Did you know, going into the briefing process, what would be needed? Do you have a clear idea and a vision for what this research would look like?
Sure. So look, I knew straight off that, a purely traditional approach to really getting to underneath this depth of inertia wasn't really going to, cut it. And obviously that's, we know that what people say and how they behave, due to a lot of the unconscious heuristics sort of at play, particularly in relation to, financial future as a topic. There's a lot of head in the sand when it comes to these products, that even the best call techniques wasn't going to really yield us the underpinning cognitive processes really going on that are inhibiting consumers, into taking action in this category. So I absolutely knew that, and the team did too, that we'd tried some things before, and we knew we needed to go deeper.
Yeah, so this was a tried and tested approach rather than it being something brand new to you.
Yeah, sure. I had used this sort of quasi BSI and traditional research approach in another category in the Australian market, and it had been really successful in terms of delivering, I guess, discrete behavioural segments that were then underpinned by the understanding of the sort of the general heuristics at play and what it would take, importantly, to obviously shift consumers and more importantly, in line with their needs. I must say, we have to really be very cognizant when using this work in any way that we're aligning to consumers' needs and going with their needs. So given the fact that I had used a similar approach, we just needed to find the right partner. And we've been working with Red Sea a lot, and they're a very innovative, forward-thinking agency. And we knew they had a host of sort of partner relationships. So we just needed the right level of Irish knowledge and local context in conjunction with the B-site expertise in real terms.
Right. So Aoife, you initially received the brief. What was your response, and was it immediately obvious what was needed and who you might need to partner with?
Yeah, so Lucy, it was really clear from the initial conversations that we had with the team in AIB that the business objective was just one of those more challenging ones. And it just comes really with the territory of aiming for scale and for growth. Not to mention that the particular category of products that we were going to be looking at they're just renowned for being complex, they're complicated, and arguably at times not terribly consumer friendly. And we wanted to research it with mass market, many consumers for whom category engagement is low to absent. So we were completely bought into the thinking that had happened in AIB as they were developing that brief.
So again, no easy task. How did you go about addressing all of those different challenges and dynamics that were at play?
Yeah, listen, we knew ourselves we could do a good job of tackling the brief, but we also knew that we needed some external collaboration to do a great job. And as a research group, this type of approach to solving research questions for our clients is just second nature to us. You know, in Red Sea, we've worked in partnership for years to deliver exceptional work with experts like Peter Field and Karen Nelson Field. And this particular project just gave us an opportunity to explore a new opportunity, this time with BVA Nudge, and to really give AIB a direction in terms of the heuristics and biases that drive real decision making when it comes to this space.
Right. So Ted, bringing you in now. I know Sure. When we've discussed this is a project that you are particularly passionate about. I mean, you're passionate about all of your projects, but this one in particular, I can really feel that coming through when we have our discussions about it. So what was it that excited you most about this opportunity in particular?
Well, I think our conversations with Red Sea had mostly been in the public policy space. I mean, they're a big team and they do a lot of work in the public policy space. So we'd thought about pitching together on some things to the Irish government. But when Aoife and Richard came with this brief, I got really excited because it was clear, as Roisin and Aoife had said, that the objective is actually behavioral. And that's not always the case. You know, Aoife at Red Sea and lots of our BVA colleagues get a lot of market research briefs that are, in essence, attitudinal or kind of awareness driven. And I think what AIB and Roisin and Aisling and their team knew at the bank was we have to change people's behaviors. And I was reflecting on myself when I first got the brief. I know about different products I'm based in London, so sadly no AIB there, but I know that my bank communicates to me about certain products. I have a pension with BVA as an employee here, all that kind of stuff, but I don't understand them either. So I was also a bit personally invested of saying, like, how do I make these decisions and how are people involved in it? We know money is a sensitive topic. Of course it is for everyone. And as Roisin said, looking ahead to the future is really hard. Our brain is not necessarily programmed to do that very well. But that's what a lot of these products are around. Investments, pensions, protection products. They're these products that are out there in the future. So to understand that need, you know, we talked earlier in the day about kind of present bias. It's hard for us to get there. So I was personally interested why I'm not doing better with my own savings and investments and pensions, but also just knowing that it really had a core behavioral objective. But our goal working with the Red Sea team was to dig past kind of classic consumer response and to understand cognitively what's preventing people from taking action and you know, doing better with their money, to be quite honest.
Great. So it sounds like between you, you and Aoife, you were the perfect partnership with the background and knowledge of the market and the B side and the personal interest, Ted. So lots of the audience today will be research and insight folk, and I'm sure they're keen to hear a little bit more about how you actually approached the research design. Aoife, could you share a bit on that?
So we embarked on what we called a behavioral science qual-led approach. So we conducted a series of groups and one-to-one in-depth interviews, but everything was set up and run through a behavioral science lens, Lucy. And the purpose of this initial qual phase that was informed by B-Side was to identify triggers and barriers around wealth and decision making when it comes to money. We also had a Herculean task of identifying and creating behavioral groupings based on the behaviors that we were seeing coming out in the groups. And Ted and I collaborated on the development of all material going into this, be it recruitment, discussion guides, just to ensure that there was a constant behavioural investigation focus throughout the project. We really needed to be confident that we were nailing behaviours, like Ted talked about that. It was so clear that it was about behaviours, and we needed to make sure that was constant through the entire project, just to ensure that AIB got the guidance that they needed on this problem so that they could ultimately influence the decision-making process when it comes to wealth.
Right. Just picking up on what you said there around that BSI lens and maintaining that behavioural investigation, what does that actually mean in practice for those of us that haven't maybe done that?
Sure. So I think behavioral science isn't magic. I think we heard Antoine Ferrer say in the previous session. It's not magic. It's really about relying on some validated, heuristics and biases. There's no crystal ball about human behavior, but what we could do is work along, Aoife, as she said, and really understand those current behaviors. We weren't just asking people, are you aware of a pension? Are you aware that you could invest your money? Are you aware that the bank, how do you feel about pensions? That's kind of market research of a decade ago. We really wanted to understand, what are people doing? Do you have a bank account? Of course you do. With who? Do you have a savings account? Is that with the same bank or a different institution? What do you use for your spending? Are you using your debit card from your current bank? Are you using one of the neobanks? Do you have a pension? Is that provided by your employer? Is that provided by, did you do it yourself? Do you have a mortgage? Did you do that with your bank? Did you do that with a broker? Really understanding, what are people doing? Not just what they're aware of, but what are they doing and how are they getting the information? Did you go to your big sister who bought a house 4 years before you, or did you go to your manager and say, should I sign up for the pension? How much are you contributing? Where are those sources of information? Because we have to understand what people are doing to guide future behaviors, not just what they're aware of.
Yeah, so it's as much about what they have done as what they plan to do.
Yeah.
Even more so, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you have an example, Ted, around something that came out of the work
Sure.
that you could share?
Yeah. So it's maybe a bit obvious, but people are risk averse, right? And we know that the brain is programmed to be risk averse. And one of the ways in which we feel risk most of all is money, right? It's our hard-earned salary. We don't want to lose it. We don't want to make the wrong decisions with it. But the reality is what Aoife and I were finding, and Roisin and the team kind of knew this, but we had to understand how it was manifesting. Because people were risk averse, they were sitting on a really large amount of cash savings, either in their current account or maybe in a fairly kind of low interest savings account. In reality, in the Irish market, there are some very safe financial products that deliver higher interest or an element of protection or insurance with potential interest that people weren't engaging in. And so we had to understand what is locking them down with that risk aversion. And part of what we found also is that when you're sitting on one pot of money in your current account or your savings account, you see that grow slowly. And so it feels kind of material to you. And what Aoife and I uncovered was that if you have some in a savings account and some in a current account and some with some insurance and some invested, when that's compartmentalized, that can be a little bit tricky for people to at first understand because they don't get this easy picture of their kind of total net worth. So one of the things that was driving that risk aversion was, well, I can just see all my money in my current account. But our goal was to get them to engage with other financial products where they could actually create more growth.
Great, thanks. And I think we'll come back to some more of what you learned through the process a bit later. But I'm just interested, it sounds from what you've described so far like a dream partnership. But how did it actually work in practice? How did you two get along working together?
I'm not sure I could say we were as cool as, I don't know, Lennon and McCartney or Bono and The Edge. Maybe more Miss Piggy and Kermit, but there was certainly a dynamic regardless there. And that was so important because Ted and I actually co-moderated the sessions. So Ted would take some sections of the discussion and then I would take others. And this approach actually was really effective to ensure that we were meticulous throughout. So if one or other of us heard something intriguing or interesting, you had an opportunity in the moment to jump in and to ask those questions and to probe further. And then when we had that initial qual-led phase completed, output from that went forward into a quantitative phase with some of my colleagues in Red Sea in Dublin. So Richard, Jane and Malcolm took that and they measured things like the extent to which triggers and barriers and heuristics uncovered occur among the various groups and quantified the behavioural groups which we had identified. And throughout even that quant process, Ted and I stayed involved. So we were engaged in their questionnaire design, the wording, when the data came back, what that actually looked like and what that meant. So there was a real consistency of approach and it wasn't just at the end, as you said at the outset, Lucy, it was really weaved in throughout.
I think that's important because we had some sessions when the qual had finished between Roisin and Aoife and myself where we really had to be very careful about the wording that was going to go into the quant because we were, to Roisin's point, we were trying to find discrete segments based on behavior. So we had to make sure that the way in which we communicated about some behaviors, are you doing this thing or not this thing, had to be really specific so that we could actually create some white space between those segments.
Thanks, Ted. So quite an involved process with lots of stages to think about. Back to then kind of what you discovered and those killer insights, if you're prepared to share any of those, it would be great to hear some.
Well, one of the most significant learnings during the project was actually to do with life stage inflection points. And maybe it's not terribly surprising what exactly they are, but it's really surprising how powerful they are at catapulting consumers past some of the really consistent barriers we saw coming up over and over again. And how important some are over others as well. And that in a way, consumers sometimes can't think about distant ones or ones in the future. Ted talked about this a little earlier, that they can't think about those inflection points there in the future. They think of the ones that are here in the now, the ones that are in the present, and that they almost need to unlock them or achieve them in order to move on. And owning a home is huge in Irish culture, and getting to that is a really, really big goal for consumers.
Yeah, it was clear to us that, people want to do well by their money. Nobody wants to work that hard and see it squandered away, with zero interest or making the wrong financial decisions. But, apart from the qualitative work, it was really important for us to understand what some of those biases that were preventing action. As Aoife said, it was interesting to me, and I'm American and owning a home is important too, but then there's lots of people who rent or who, have different housing situations. It was incredible to me to see how that's such a huge cultural touchstone in Irish culture, and that for a lot of the kind of younger target that we spoke to, they just couldn't think about anything related to investments, hardly think about pensions, hardly think about any kind of protection product until they felt, I have a deposit ready to go for a house. As Eva said, it's like without unlocking that big goal, they almost felt like, well, I'm not ready for any other big grown-up financial decisions, adult financial decisions, until I've done that. And knowing how the housing market is, that can be delaying a lot of really good financial behaviors deep into life if you can't have a house at, my parents, I think, bought a house in their late 20s. That's not the reality of the housing market now. So I think that was important. One of the things we also saw is that there was a small but worrying segment who were really, I think, Roisin, you used the words putting their heads in the sand. And in behavioral science, we call that the ostrich effect, right? They were really sinking their heads underground, not ever even looking at their bank balance, not looking at any other financial communications coming from their bank, because the idea of really having a sense of where they are was terrifying. They actually might not be in such financial stress, but it's just cognitively too much to think about. And that's a really difficult behavior to unlock, but they have to, right? If AIB wants to serve those customers and keep them in a healthy or safe financial position, that's a behavior we have to unlock. On the complete other side, we talked to another kind of small segment who were real renegades. They were really out there. They were trying to invest. They were dabbling in cryptocurrencies, especially during the pandemic when they had a little bit more kind of cash sloshing around, and they were really out there with kind of optimism biased, right? Thinking, I can make a good decision. Here's something new and innovative. Everything that's innovative seems to pay off in their mind. And they were putting money into some crypto products. I think some people have done quite well. A lot of people have not done that well, where there's some maybe more classical financial products out there that still offer good gains, but that this target kind of wasn't thinking of because they have the kind of salient crypto scene and chat and all that discourse top of mind. Of course, a lot more consumers are just more middle of the road, where they were savings, watching that savings grow, as I talked about. But if the bank could just engage them in saying, okay, Adrienne, you want to buy a house in 2 to 4 years, what if you started putting some savings in a fixed deposit where you're not going to access that money for 2 years because you want to keep it safe, right? And you could actually gain more interest. So that was the kind of behaviors that we were looking to unlock with a quite a wide variety of different consumer types.
Wow, great. Thanks, Ted. I'll come back to you now, Roisin. Interested to hear what having those insights that Aoife and Ted have talked through there, but also everything else that was part of this project has allowed AIB to do differently.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I guess it really did get us to the question in the brief, which was the really to understand the why in a more deeper, meaningful way. And not just that, but obviously what were the tools that we needed to deploy or action, which sometimes can be seemingly very simple, but have obviously that deep BSI sort of underpinning. That was really new, different, and our ability to action that was obviously what we were trying to achieve. The other thing I could just say in terms of the quantitative, and Ethan and Ted have both mentioned it, when Richard and the team took over from the quant size, as our financial service organization, we want to know the numbers. We want to know, obviously, segmenting the base and looking at the opportunity through a quantitative lens was critical. And so translating from that deep qual into the quant it was really where I suppose the rubber hit the road in terms of us being able to really understand the size of the market, the macro unmet needs in the market, and really sort of digging a bit deeper and being able to put these two things together to really build the best picture we could of I guess, the consumer opportunity in the market. So yeah, I think the other thing, I suppose, because we are talking about behavior, it's highly actionable. And as Ted mentioned, awareness and how you feel about things is great. But, when you have the insight pertaining to behavior in this way, not only is it much more actionable, but it's also measurable in a sort of more concrete manner. So they were probably some of the high level. Of course, I'm not going to give away all the depth of insight, but and the guys have alluded to some of it. But it was very rich.
Great, thank you. So having shared what you've learned from customers throughout the process or consumers throughout the process, I'm just interested to pick up on what you learned from the process itself. So were there any aha moments sort of along the journey, Aoife, that kind of, you've sort of taken from this?
Lucy, I have to re-emphasize how genuinely collaborative this project was. I know people talk about collaboration all the time, but this really was, and it was really important that it was, because it was an intense piece of work. We did have to pivot and we had to challenge each other to make sure that we were really getting to the nub of it. And Ted and I really leaned on each other to get it. Ted is the behavioural science expert. I really understand the Irish market, Irish culture more generally. And there were numerous times during the groups and during the interviews where it genuinely felt like a light bulb was turned on, and that Ted was giving me the missing puzzle piece, or I was giving it to him in order to get that full picture. We had brainstorm sessions, which featured COVID, unfortunately, but where we went back and forth and back and forth. But when we landed the killer insight and we identified what we termed to be the atomic bombs of inflection points, I knew that we had revealed for AIB what they would need to really go for it commercially. The whole experience really reinforced the importance of seeking collaboration. There has been something exceptionally effective and inspiring and special about the Red Sea BVA Nudge working relationship. And while I am here promoting collaboration, I do say that finding the right partner to collaborate with is really essential. And we have been a really, really great fit.
Great. And Roisin, from your perspective, being the client, working with the two agencies, was there any challenges, or was sort of challenges you might have expected overcome in some way?
Well, I guess, and I can absolutely attest to what Aoife's, not just on the collaboration train, it really was, and I think it really down to Aoife and Ted in terms of their ability and openness, and Red Sea's openness to, I guess, try something a little different as well. They've probably done a lot of work in B-side, but we were trying to tackle this specifically. So I think, there was a real openness from both sides to work collaboratively together. And and as such, this project had a number of stages to it, and as Aoife mentioned, or I think I might have mentioned earlier, some of it was just coming out of COVID, was the deeper piece. Then we had the cost of living crisis hit, and again, the context is critical. And Aoife's expertise in the local Irish market. I'm from the north of Ireland, and I wouldn't have the depth of local market, understanding as Aoife would have, and the Republic of Ireland is, there are some uniquenesses to it. So really important that we were tapping in and retapping into, whether what we were finding and how it was standing up as we were moving through, crisis after crisis in things, particularly the sensitivity of these sorts of products and in relation to cost of living. But I think that, because of that work and the different stages that we did with it, we've moved on from these products, and the golden team here is now have been working on personal lending and also mortgages. Not exactly the same, but definitely infused with behavioural science in a similar way. And we're now in a position where we can sort of triangulate across all of these products, these views from a product lens perspective, to really understand and identify, what insights, will help us to, I guess, drive, deepening consumer connections and mitigate against, I guess, the competition as well. This is a market view that we're seeking here. So yeah, there's lots of, it's folded on for us because of the success of what we find in the wealth space, for want of a better term. And yeah, it's been great working with the guys as a result.
Great.
I think
anything you'd do differently next time, Roisin? Any learns for next time?
I suppose the one thing, as with any project in any organisation, there never is the time you need. And, there was a lot of time pressure on this project, and it was a complex piece. And there was a lot of time pressures placed upon it. And because you're bringing something new, like the business, we had the luxury of having stakeholders who were very open to using behavioural science in this way. And our broader insights team, are always seeking, where's the best way we can start to look at this type of insight that's actually meaningful for the business and not just on the back end of, things, how can we actually embed it within the process? Because often, it is the depth that's needed to then deliver those really simple solutions on the other end. And a lot of people sort of understanding, is just that other end. So getting the right balance with the enough science understood as to why we got what we got and what we find, and then the application and why, in some instances, it was fairly simple in terms of its application. I would probably, if I had the time, which is never the case, is for Ted to have done some maybe baseline training with stakeholders so that we were maybe quicker on the same page around the B-side side of stuff. So it could have been, I guess, picked up a little bit quicker. But look, that's a perfect world. And we don't live in one.
Okay, great. And Ted, from your side,
Yeah,
anything you would have done differently?
I agree. I think if we could have trained some senior leaders to hear learnings from a BSI angle. At the same time, Roisin and Aisling in the Insights team have really been our advocates internally at AIB, and Aoife and I kind of have a bit of a running tally and a bit of a joke now between us that every debrief we run, there's typically multiple debriefs per project, and project on project, we're getting a bigger and bigger audience, and I think that just goes to show something Etienne said in the previous roundtable. Finding appetite and interest in behavioral science isn't hard. I think it's on a lot of people's minds. What we've found now is that our audience at AIB has gone from Insights, of course, where this brief started, to now we're talking to product teams via Roisin. Now we're talking to marketing. We're talking to in-branch services. So it's really about how do we now help them apply. And I guess on an internal side with my BVA Nudge consulting colleagues, this project, among a few others, has really given us confidence in a hunch that we had before that running segmentations based on behaviors could really be the future of being more efficient for our client organizations. Instead of doing classical segmentation, which is typically based on demographics, who are you, how old are you, where do you live, do you have children or not, rather than thinking about who people are, is asking what do they do and basing a segmentation on that, I think is more interesting. In the behavioral segments that we created at AIB, you might have somebody who has an extremely high net worth and somebody who has a low net worth, and one of them might be old and one of them might be young, but they fall into the same behavioral grouping because they behave with their money in the same way. And I think that, I hope, Roisin, you agree, I think for the bank that becomes something that's more actionable for them than just knowing who people are. There's plenty of need and reasons to do kind of more classical market research to understand who your customers are, but when the objective is behavioral, we need to really judge people on what they're doing as opposed to who they are.
Great, thanks, Ted. So we're going to wrap up shortly and open up for questions. But just before we do that, I'm interested to hear what the future holds for this collaboration. So, Roisin, what's next? What work is there still to do?
So, like I sort of briefly mentioned, Lucy, we've just come out of mortgages and personal lending. Goodness, there's that many projects on the go. I'm trying to think myself. But like I said, I think the next stage is for us to take all of this great insight and triangulate it through so we can look at it from a broader perspective, because there's so much richness. Certainly this delivered to the brief in terms of the product development of the proposition, the marketing, of course, customer experience, etc. But it really has such broad application across the business that diving into it and really unpicking and unpacking it is now sort of, I guess, where we're at. And as the guy said, there's lots of appetite in the business and lots of people want to understand this. So yeah, we'll move forward, and it's an organic process as it's been so far, and we'll keep going with that flow, I think.
And Aoife, how are you approaching client problems differently as a result of this work, and if so, how?
Yeah, well, Lucy, Red Sea have been really open to behavioural science for some time. We have been leaders in incorporating System 1 and System 2 thinking into market research. I do feel that as a result of this project, there has been further incorporation, even in terms of how we receive briefs and how to differentiate and stand out in terms of our response to those briefs. And where relevant, it has impacted the development of our questioning material, be it guides, be it questionnaires. It just has heightened our dedication, I suppose, our innate dedication to revealing behaviours, to listening, and even in terms of moderation, there are times where we now adopt a co-moderation approach if we feel it's going to add value to our clients. So it has really strengthened our relationship with clients, but it has also been commercially beneficial to Red Sea too.
Ted, anything you want to say finally before we open up for questions?
Sure. I mean, I'd just say, as Roisin mentioned, this started off as a project kind of in the middle of COVID, and then we did an update because the cost of living crisis was, we had a hunch might be changing some behaviors. And from that, we moved into mortgages, knowing that that was this kind of important cultural aspect to Irish spending and saving. And now we're looking at personal loans. And what I think is interesting is, from one difficult project, we kind of started big, and now we're getting quite tactical. But all throughout, it's really important to keep in mind context. And the context isn't just Ireland. The context is Ireland in 2021, and then it was Ireland in 2022, and now it's Ireland in 2023. I'm really glad I'm not trying to buy a house in Dublin right now, because the housing market is really expensive and it feels really out of reach for a lot of consumers. So, we're really looking at ways to help them save in the right way, connect with the right lenders, and this context is ever changing. So our work isn't, just done. And I think it's good that AIB sees that they are understanding that behavior exists within a context. And I think that's probably the most exciting part for me.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. We have got some questions. So, question from Louise, and we may have touched on this, but it'd be good to just cover off. So, how did you overcome the basic premise of customers not knowing themselves or not being true to themselves in focus groups?
Aoife, you or me?
Ted
Sure.
or Aoife?
Me? Okay. I think,
wants to take it.
yeah, I mean, Aoife, jump in at any point, but I think that's fine. I don't think an in-depth interview or a focus group is therapy. It's not necessarily the moment for the consumer to necessarily reveal or understand who they are. It's for us to understand who they are through what they're saying, and knowing that they can't always say what they mean. And so Aoife and I went over and over the discussion guide and really kind of battled it out on exactly how do we want to ask those questions. And again, going in by asking what people are doing and how they came to that decision, instead of asking the why. To Roisin's point, the end result is the why is what's delivered to AIB. But asking respondents in market research, why do you do that? Tanya, why don't you have a pension? That people can't ask that. So instead, it's kind of asking in different ways and coming at the same question a couple of different ways with the what are you doing? What are you not doing? Who are you doing it with? Who did you hear that from? Why did you go to that person to seek out their advice? What did they tell you? I think that's more important than asking someone to kind of figure themselves out. Aoife, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, and I think as well, we've really played up to our dynamic a little bit, Ted, as well. We would do our introduction, and I have a very evidently Irish accent, Ted very evidently American, and I think it was a really safe space for people to share in as well. So Ted was very much I don't know anything about over here, you tell me, and could ask those questions, and I would kind of step back. I'd know where maybe my expertise was more valuable, and maybe where if I pulled back a little bit, they felt a little bit more permission to share how they really felt, or to reveal how little they really knew.
Yeah, my best advice to any qualitative researchers: never be afraid to play dumb or just be dumb. And it really is a benefit to say, I don't live in Ireland, I don't work in Ireland, I don't rent a flat in Ireland, I don't have a pension in Ireland, so you have to tell me really explicitly what that's like. So I think there's a good opportunity to kind of have that dynamic where one person is completely out of it, and it allows that psychological safety, which we've been talking about earlier this morning, for people to really explain themselves and really go there.
Great, thank you. I think we've got time just for one more. And we may have touched on this slightly, but a question from Magdalena. What are you especially paying attention to, and how can you catch those biases that participants have? Probably, again, one for you, Ted.
Yeah, I mean, we shared some definitions with the AIB team about what we really mean when we talk about behavioral science. What do we really mean when we talk about heuristics and biases? And then at BVA Nudge Consulting, we have a framework of what we call the drivers of influence, I think Roisin mentioned, which are 21 out of many drivers. And so we also, with Aoife and Jane and Malcolm and Richard, we kind of trained the team as well on listening out for them. So how do we hear people talk about norms, social norms, that they're really driven to do what other people do? Well, everybody's saving for a house, so I'll start there. Okay, well, that's about social norms. So it's really about listening, having some of them in mind. The reality of behavioral science is it's too big and too broad to have all 200 heuristics in your mind at any given time. So we really rely quite heavily on our framework, the drivers of influence. We typically use that. What we found is that when we've gotten into the more complex and more specific behaviors, particularly now with mortgages and personal lending, is we have had to dip outside of the drivers of influence into some other heuristics. So we're looking at, how can AIB reduce ambiguity when people are looking at a personal loan? How do we just, deal with cognitive dissonance? We've talked a little bit about present bias today. And so, how do we help people utilize present bias when it's something like a loan that I need now? And how do we overcome present bias when it's something in the future, like a pension or an investment that that they hopefully won't touch and just let grow for a long time? And I think, I don't know, Roisin, if you have a final word, but I think what we've also seen is that the AIB team now, particularly Roisin's team, of course, because she's been exposed to a lot of behavioral science, but even the marketing team, is that they're starting to use some BSI language as well.
Right. Thank you. Well, I think that, unless Roisin, Aoife, you wanted to say anything else, I think that is pretty much all we've got time for. So, super interesting. I think lots to think about, particularly in terms of, how you design and set up the research, but also, that finding the right partner. Thank you all for being open and for sharing your experience. I'll now hand back, I think, to Eric, Ted.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I stay here.
A great rental. No, you can stand
I can stretch?
up.
Okay, I can stretch.
Why? Because we want to ask some
something
question to this guy with a lot of post-it. I hope there are also some sketch note. So, what do you think? Have you been inspired during this morning?
Yeah, definitely inspired. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Can they hear you?
Yeah,
Let me give you a mic.
Yeah,
Okay.
inspired. Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite a challenge to select which idea I'm going to illustrate because there is so many interesting things that have been shared so far. So that's the main challenge, if I have to be honest.
And what is your secret to be successful at selecting among so many ideas, insight, and
I would love to have a secret. I'm not sure I have one. It's mainly lot of practice and trying to. Most of people think that the drawing part is the harder part. To be honest, it's the listening and trying to select which idea to illustrate. Yeah.
Great.
is it technically possible to see some of the sketch note?
That I don't know if they can broadcast on the screen. But I can see Adrian's just been drawing on this last section that we've been doing, the segmentation on financial behavior. So talk us through, Adrian. Give us an idea that made it to the sketch
We are
note.
supposed to see your drawing. So could
think we
you?
can
I think we can see that. Yeah.
Here we go. Okay,
So
talk
that
us
was.
through.
This is what I just drew during
I'll get out of the way.
the session. I wish I had more space, to be honest, because there were so many great insights that were shared. Not sure we can see my drawing.
Here we go.
My face is a lot less interesting
It's
than my
not
drawing,
a
I
sketch
guess.
note.
Yeah, maybe I'm too abstract. Well, I really try to give a visual summary. Obviously, I can't be exhaustive, so I had to select a few. Sometimes I select ideas just because they're so fun to draw, like the ostrich effect. I'm not sure the spelling is right.
Perfect.
Right. And the no crystal ball about human behavior. And actually, I think you will recognize yourself, Ted.
I think so.
This is
Up
you
here with
using
my
the
clipboard.
BSI lens. Yeah.
Great.
So this is what I come up for the session, and I've been busy drawing the session that already happened, and I'm excited for people to discover them after the event.
And one more session, then we promise we'll give you a break. Excellent. Thanks so much, Adrian. So, as we mentioned, Adrian's going to be doing sketch notes for each session throughout. Those will be available to any of you who've registered online, and we'll be sharing them, of course, through BVA social media. And I think now we're ready to begin. I can sit down. Okay, I can sit down again. Good.
Again. So now a second roundtable on customer experience. The title of this second roundtable is Behavioral Science Infused to a Key Topic, Responsible Gaming. And we are very happy to have as panelists and experts participating to this roundtable Sophie Le Fur Dupuis who is head of the Customer Experience and Knowledge Department at Française des Jeux, Ima Romano, who is Director of Institutional Relation and Communication at Codere Italia, Sonia Biondi, who is Business Unit Director at BVA Doxa, and again, this guy who is an expert in everything. This roundtable will be moderated by Anna Luciano. So, hello, Anna, who is Senior Manager of Business Development and Strategy at BVA Doxa. And as you know, you will have, after this 30-minute roundtable, a 10-minute Q&A session. So, welcome, everybody.
Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, Ted.
Hi, guys.
Good morning and welcome to all the conference attendees. I'm delighted to discuss this topic with our distinguished guest today. We will delve into the promotion of responsible gaming across various forms, including lotteries, bingo, betting, slot machine, video lottery terminals, and online gaming. It's intriguing to examine how behavioral science has been applied in both Italy and France to address this issue. We'll explore the challenges within this sector and discover ways to ensure that gamers enjoy their pastime in a responsible manner. Let's begin with understanding the context in the respective countries. Ima, Sophie, what is the status of gaming in your respective countries? How does the law allow you to intervene? Ima, would you like to start?
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. Well, in Italy, we are finally experiencing a phase of change. After years of stagnation and the inability to issue concession due to various reasons, the government, through the fiscal delegation law, is now planning the much-awaited reorganization of the sector. This breath of fresh air should allow operators to plan investments and action with a longer-term perspective, reducing the constant need for urgent responses. The constant regulatory changes and restrictions in recent years made it challenging to establish industrial plans.
Thank you, Ima. And what about in France, Sophie?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be remotely with you to talk about behavioral science with you this morning. So to answer to your question, Anna, in France, gambling is a regulated market. La Française des Jeux, so FDJ, holds a monopoly on point of sales, lottery games and sports betting. But we also oversee competitive activities, primarily in the realm of online sports betting and poker. We serve approximately 26 million clients, which represent roughly 1 out of every 2 French adults. And actually, there are notable differences when comparing France to Italy, because in France, advertising rights are granted, meaning that we have the right to do online advertising and TV campaigns. But on the other hand, slot machines are only permitted in casinos, and online casinos and video lottery games are not permitted at all.
Thank you, Sophie. 1 out of 2 is impressive. And Ima, is there any social pressure judgment towards gaming?
The issue of cash-based gaming has been a deeply and emotional and controversial topic in recent years, leading to numerous political and social debates. On one side, there are proponents of legal gaming to combat illegal activities, provide a safe and controlled form of entertainment, contribute to tax revenues, and generate employment. On the other side, there are opponents advocating for prohibition, complete elimination of public gaming, stringent advertising bans, as well say Sophie, and restrictions on all forms of communication, including official channel and communication, institutional communication.
I see, not an easy context where to operate. No. And Sophie, do you face the same challenges or any other?
Yes, well, as we've seen, we don't operate exactly in the same regulatory environment, and we don't operate the same categories, but the challenges we face are very similar to the one Ima just described. I would also add the legal vagueness regarding the Web3 gaming with NFTs, which is very close to gambling.
Thank you, Sophie. Indeed, a fascinating topic. Let me ask Imma, what has been done in Italy so far to promote more responsible gaming?
Many choices and many opportunities, but the current government has recognized the challenges facing to entire gaming sector and has deemed it necessary to pursue a comprehensive regulatory overhaul. This objective is to chart a sustainable future for this vital economics and industrial sector, while prioritizing consumer protection and safeguarding vulnerable individuals. The government aims to strike a balance between entrepreneurial interests, fiscal consideration, and regional context to enhance the quality of the gaming experience and the venues where it is offered. This effort also seeks the professionalize gaming operators. Responsible gaming has always remained a top priority. State concessionaire gaming operators in Italy have implemented numerous measures to protect customers and ensure that gaming remains an enjoyable pastime. These measures align with the guideline established by the International Society of Psychiatry and draw insights from international surveys and studies conducted by esteemed research institutions. The tools employed have primarily focus on educating individuals explicitly about healthy and responsible gaming, relying on prohibitions or mandates. However, it was being observed that these tools have limited effectiveness among frequent patrons of gaming establishments or individuals with the compulsive gambling habits.
Thank you, Imma. I see this intervention have not reached the objective of promoting full, safe, and responsible playing. So, how did you come to behavioral science?
It became evident, therefore, that a paradigm shift was necessary in this moment. A new approach to the issue of responsible gaming that could lead to a gaming model that remain pure entertainment without recipients feeling compelled through explicit obligation or prohibition. Engaging with behavioral science, particularly the concept of nudge, open up new horizons. Experience in other equally sensitive sectors confirmed the hypothesis that there were intriguing possibilities, uncharted territories for influencing behavior through gentle nudges. In this context, it became apparent that the new approach could address a better gaming model. My company, Codere Italia in specific, together with a group of other larger companies in the sector, felt that they should follow this new path. In the end, working together made all difference. We created during multiple work sessions the nudge with TED, and DOXA, with the goal of helping without forcing.
Thank you, Imma. Now, I would like to ask a question to Ted. What is the benefit of using behavioral science to guide responsible gaming?
I think, like Emma said, our goal was really to preserve the element of fun, but to safeguard the practice. And so, what we know from behavioral science, and as Emma evidenced from Italy, just providing a lot more information and education won't do it. There's lots of information in this world about a lot of topics. We need to, more than just capture people's attention, we need to change their behaviors in context. And in the gaming sector, it's really about guiding better behaviors. We need to take a more behavioral approach that takes into account the contextual and irrational side of gaming as well. And our decision was really that we wanted to help people game responsibly. We take ethics really seriously at BVA Group. But as both Sophie and Emma have alluded to, gaming exists. It exists in this world with or without structured companies like Francis de Joe or Codere or Emma's other colleagues in Italy. And so we wanted to help create an atmosphere that again, made gaming fine and fun, but our work was not to recruit new gamers. Our goal was to help control gamers who may have an issue, but not to be too paternalistic, to just make changes in the atmosphere that help guide them, take breaks, etc. We'll talk about some of the nudges later. But really our belief at BVA is that it's not to control or eliminate choices. We're not here to disrupt the freedom of choice. The freedom of choice should exist. Our job is to help guide people towards better decisions that align with their intentions. It's similar if you wanted to go bungee jumping on your holiday, or if you want to drink a glass of wine, that's all fine. You should have the freedom to do any of the things that you want to do. Our goal is to help you do that in a way that aligns with your intentions and that protects you.
Thank you, Ted. And Sonia, could you share which challenges does this category face in Italy?
Oh, sei muto.
Okay. In choosing different forms of gaming, it's essential to recognize significant distinctions. Firstly, context plays a key role. Scratch cards offer versatility, playable almost anywhere, while bingo and slot machines are located in specific venues. Bingo involves group play, while slot machines are a solo experience. Online gaming, on the other hand, is a solitary and accessible by PCs or smartphones. Secondly, motivation and behaviors differ. Bingo is about communal challenges, while teas focus on testing luck and skills, and sports betting allows players to showcase expertise. Scratch cards, too akin to slot, provide instant gratification through physical scratching. In essence, gaming choices and experiences vary considerably.
Thank you, Sonia. And how we address the challenge to make responsible gaming in Italy?
As I said, understanding the context and observing people's behavior in relation to gaming is crucial. Ethnography helps us to identify key moments for applying gentle nudges to promote responsible gaming. Let's delve into ethnography to observe behavior and understand the context. Only through this approach can we identify triggers and obstacles and identify the pivotal moments where subtle nudges or nudge can gently guide individuals towards responsible gaming. Once we have established the contextual areas and understood the customer journey, we proceed with co-creating interventions based on the behavioral sciences theory. These interventions aim to optimize the number of bets or plays for healthy enjoyment, reduce excessive playing time to prevent addiction, and encourage breaks during gaming to maintain a responsible approach. Our focus is on pleasure and fun, recognizing that play is a gateway to vitality, promoting optimism, novelty, immune system health, empathy, and community altogether. Playing also enrich relationships like us, making it easier to find human connections and deepen interpersonal bonds. In essence, in my opinion, we aim to use ethnography to create interventions that guide players toward the responsible gaming while maintaining, in the same time, vitality and optimism in a social context of collective well-being.
Thank you, Sonia. I can really feel your passion here.
Yeah, I'm really passionate.
Now I move back to Ted, and Ted, you will also have a few slides to present.
Sure.
So I would ask you if you could share example of intervention.
Sure.
And also tell us why it's important to test them.
Sure. So as the team gets the slides up, I just want to reiterate a little bit of what Sonia was saying, is that through the qualitative research, what we found was that for a lot of people, gaming and having that time to game and seeing some of their friends in a bingo hall, et cetera, was really important to their socialization. You know, it's very easy to look at a category like gaming and say, no, we don't want to work on this. But it was really evident through the research of how important this part of people's day can be. But also, it's our job, and it was the brief from Ima and her colleagues at not just Correre, but even her competitors. It was really a consortium of gaming companies to make sure that we are preventing anyone who has an issue to control that gaming. So one of the nudge ideas that we came up with on premise was to help people kind of understand what are the rules of the game, right? When you're here, when you're playing, you should have a great time, but there are some rules. So you can see here, it says I giocatori in questa sala. So the players in this room usually spend about 20 minutes gaming, right? Now, what's important about that is that it's true. It's based on data that Ima and her colleagues and that Sonia has found, is that most people don't spend that much time there. But by creating something like a social norm like that, it actually guides people's behavior. So if I was used to spending 45 minutes or 60 minutes gaming, now I start seeing, oh, most people leave after 20 minutes. Okay, or they game for 20 minutes and take a break, etc. So by using social norms, it helps to affect gameplay for those who might be staying a little too long and playing too many rounds. The next idea, I think, which is also on the slides, was one around taking a bit of a break or a detox. If I can have the slides again, maybe I can control it. Let's see how much power I have. I have the clicker. Let's see. No? Yes. You can see? You can see here. Okay. The next one was about take 5, right? This idea of kind of taking a quick break. And this one was really about, you know, it says take 5 minutes for a break. Would you like to have a coffee? Why don't you have a look, you know, take a little walk, have a little stroll around. And this was really, again, about just trying to be there present. You can see that these are being implemented now, so we don't have real photos, but they're being implemented amongst the machines or above some of the machines. This is just about easiness, right? Making it easy to have to make a better behavior with the least amount of effort required, and also creating some habits. You know, there are other things. I think for a lot of us who work at home, there's been a lot of discussion of like, do 40 minutes of intense work and then get up and, you know, stretch your legs or use a standing desk or walk around. Are there ways that we can create better, healthier habits within the bingo hall or within the betting shop to allow people to, you know, stretch, take a break, etc.? And this was really because we knew that some of the players who have an issue almost get a little bit hypnotized by the machine and by the cadence of the machine. So this is this idea to get them to take a bit of a break. For the moment, these interventions are just on posters, etc. But as we were talking with Ima and her colleagues, there could even be ways to look in the future to programming something like that into the screen of the machine to make it even more salient and present to people, saying, okay, Anna, you know, you've been playing for 20 minutes, have a break, have something to drink, etc. And I think the next one, oh, I'm in control, I feel so powerful. Okay, the next one is what we were calling the event of the day. The reality of Italy is that it's a very aging population. And the demographics of some of the people who visit the bingo halls and who visit some of the betting shops are quite old. Their time while they're gaming is actually really important for their socialization. They're checking in on one another. We know from some of the employees of some of the bingo halls, they know the gamers by name. They're used to seeing them. They're used to checking in on them. How are you doing? How's your wife? You know, are you feeling better? Did she have her surgery? So this idea of having people there was not purely about gaming. It was about community and socialization. So we thought about, are there opportunities to create some small little event of the day? It's a small performance. It's a tiny lecture. It's an opportunity to learn a skill, to keep people engaged on that community dynamic. In terms of our drivers of influence, it was really looking at value. What's the value of being here? What am I getting out of this? And again, it also works a little bit like that Take 5 idea. It provides some sort of break in the day that allows people to do something different, you know, engage in watching a performance, talking with each other, learning a skill, etc. And it's also about reciprocity. You know, it's important that the people who come to play, feel that this company, that this place is also looking out for them. It's not just about the gameplay, and when you stop playing, okay, bye, we're not here to just host you in a space, but showing them we are here for you. There's a skill you could learn. We even talked about, you know, could there be some first aid training as one of the events of the day? Could it be performances? Could it be seasonal? Again, this is not to draw people in, but it's to help them, give them a pause and create that sense of community while gaming. And the other one was just reminding people that there's life outside, right? Again, because we're targeted not at the average gamer, we're targeted at the people who are spending a little bit too much time inside. So there are screens throughout some of the spaces, whether it's a bingo hall or a betting shop, and reminding them. It could be a live camera of the street scene outside. It could be beautiful imagery of your city. So again, just trying to anchor them in this idea that gaming is one part of life, one small part of your life and your enjoyment, but you are a citizen of Milano or Napoli or Bari, etc., and that there's life outside as well. So reminding people to get outside, have a stroll, and disrupt that gameplay. So the nudges are being incorporated now across not just Correre, but Emma's colleagues at some of the other operators as well. And so we are hoping to see what kind of impact they have through measurement. I think we'll hand over Anna to Sophie. Anna? Are you there?
Okay.
Great. Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, sorry. So I repeat the question. It was for Sophie. She can share the role of behavioral science in her study. Sophie, you launch the slides you need.
Okay, so Anna, before I completely answer to your question, I'd like to start with a short preamble on responsible gaming at FDJ. So for FDJ, ensuring that each game adheres to responsible gaming principle right from the design stage is a top priority. So to achieve this, we work with experts and we utilize an evaluation framework we call Serenity Game. Besides, online players have the option to set time limits and maximum stakes, preventing them from continuing once these limits are reached. We also gauge the impact of our games through the Problem Gambling Severity Index, the PGSI, which consists of 9 questions designed to assess the level of dependence to gambling and distinguishing between recreational, risky, and pathological gamblers. We are committed to communication as well, allocated 10% of our advertising budget to responsible gaming to deter addictive behavior and underage gambling. So in this context, we launched a TV campaign last year, emphasizing the need to control gambling, to maintain it as a form of entertainment, while highlighting the available tools on FDJ's digital platforms. So maybe, Ted, I understood you have the power, so if you can launch one of the video.
Let's see if I can. Is it me or is it Caroline? Here we go. And with the sound?
Mais qu'est-ce que vous faites, Michel?
Bah, je joue. Faut faire du mieux d'en faire autant.
C'est n'importe quoi.
Quand les joueurs n'ont pas de règles, c'est plus du jeu. Et pour les jeux d'argent, c'est pareil. Il faut avoir plus de 18 ans, se fixer un budget et surveiller sa pratique.
FDJ met à votre disposition des outils pour encadrer votre pratique de jeu.
Vous voulez pas qu'on fasse un autre jeu, plutôt?
FDJ.
Thank you. So there were 4 videos, and of course the campaign underwent traditional post-testing, and our findings revealed that the campaign performed quite well, with strong results in terms of visibility, in terms of recall, in terms of agreement towards the campaign's message, comprehension, and even intent to utilize the responsible gaming tools. But one crucial question remains: do all these initiatives lead to actual behavioral changes among excessive or pathological gamblers? So to assess this impact effectively, we recognize the need to move beyond rational and intent questions. And that's why we collaborated with BVA and Montpellier University, employing a behavioral science-based methodology centered around the balloon analog risk task, the BART. So here again, Ted, I think it would be great if we could see the chart.
Yep. Can you see on your screen?
No, not yet.
Okay. We can see it here live. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yes. So the BART exercise allows interviewees to inflate a balloon with 1 to 64 air injections, and each injection yielding a gain of 15 cents. However, if the balloon bursts, they lose their winnings. So we observed risk behavior before and after exposure to the campaign, or the campaign and the limits tool. A control group of respondents who were not exposed to anything was included. So to wrap up my answer, the role of behavioral science here was pivotal, predicting the impact of the TV campaign and the limits tools on gambling behavior as accurately as possible, especially on the risky and pathological gamblers.
Thank you, Sophie. And what have you discovered regarding the role of communication campaign in promoting responsible gaming?
So here again, we can maybe show it's the last chart. What we discovered is that when gamers are exposed to the campaign and the limit tools, they take less risk, regarding their gaming behavior. So why is that? Thanks to the limit, because an important part of the interviewees decided to set limits, and whatever their gambler status. It was true among the recreational players, but also among the pathological gamblers. So it was very interesting for us. So it is possible to change behaviors with non-restrictive limits. Setting limits translates into a change of behaviors, even when the limit is below how much they play before being exposed to the campaign and the tools.
I know you also decide to experiment to recontact a sample of gamers 2 weeks after. Why so, and what happened?
Well, we wanted to assess the impact of a new exposure to the campaign, and also we wanted to know if the behavior changes remain stable with time. And what it showed was that indeed the behavior changes remain stable, which is very cool, very interesting for us. But a re-exposure to the limits tool is not really effective because gamblers are reluctant to lower their risk more.
Thank you. I need to skip one question because we are running out of time. So I go back to Ima and Sophie. First of all, thanks for having shared your case. After running these studies, has your opinion towards behavioral science changed? Do you have any plans in the future to reuse it?
In the various meetings, we have had to define goals, tools, and declination. I have become increasingly convinced that the behavioral science approach, which truly investigated people, habits, and hidden beliefs, has something disruptive in it. As a new approach, and being able to act on habits without coercion, leading people toward greater awareness, toward a healthier lifestyle, toward a better quality of their choice by leveraging a gentle push is revolutionary for me. I expect very interesting results from the experimentation we are putting in place in Italy. My opinion has not changed. I'm still convinced that behavioral science methodology, of course, we use it every time we want to understand, change, and predict behaviors. It can be on responsible gaming, but also on business and performance topics.
Thank you, Ima. What about you, Sophie?
Well, I totally agree with Ima. I am I'm completely convinced by behavioral science methodology. And for us, it is key to go through this methodology when we want to understand and predict behaviors. We work a lot with behavioral science when dealing with responsible gaming, but we also use it on purchase behaviors and on performance topics, because it's key when you launch a new game or when you create a new a journey in your store to be able to understand and to predict the behaviors of our customers.
Thank you, Sophie. So we now dedicate some time to the Q&A. I just have received one from Leila. So the question is how to find the right balance in communication between a message like 100% of the winner took their chance and the message that encourage the gamers to be more responsible. Sophie, would you like to reply?
Yes, 100% of the winner took their chance. It's for FDJ indeed. Well, actually, for us, first, when we launch responsible TV campaigns, we ensure that it won't have what we call, I don't know if it's the right word in English, a iatrogeneous effect, meaning that it doesn't make people want to play more. So it is the first thing. The second thing is that clearly, as a gambling operator, we have to be attractive enough to make people play with us instead of black market operators or operators promoting intensive gambling to maximize profits. So we have to be attractive in terms of a TV campaign, of games, etc. And we also have to promote recreational gaming based on rules, control tools, and nudge, because gambling is okay if you practice it with a recreative way. So this is actually the way we work, and for us it's our mandate, and that's why we hold the monopoly in France. We have to be a serious competitor versus black market operators.
Thank you, Sophie. Meanwhile, waiting for other question, I have another one for you, Ted. Which other categories could take a hint from this case?
Well, as I always say, when you worship at the Church of Behavioral Science, you kind of think it can be applied anywhere. I think there's two different ways to think about that, and I think the first is a category that is, controversial, or where there's an ethical component. And I think what Sophie and Ima both talked about is really important. There's an alternative to gaming and gambling in a structured way at a legal company, and that's illegal black market betting and gambling, which happens in every market. And so, we very hotly debate this topic at BVA, and we have some strong opinions within the team around which categories we can work in. So I think behavioral science is actually oftentimes the right approach in those kind of ethical or kind of controversial topics. That's one. I think that the other way I would answer that is anywhere that you need behavior to change, you need to think about the context where that behavior happens. Gaming gives you a particular example where there's not a lot of, or in Ima's case in Italy, you can't advertise, right? There's no advertising above the line for gaming. So you have to do that nudging, and you have to guide those behaviors in context in the situation where you are. You know, when we work with other companies where they're maybe producing a product that sits on a supermarket shelf, they're always thinking advertising first and brand building first. But we have to remind them where a lot of decision making happens is right at the supermarket shelf, is right at the supermarket checkout, is when you're standing at the desk in a hotel and paying or deciding to add breakfast, etc. And I think what was great about the work that we do with Frances Dejo and with Correre and Emma's colleagues in Italy is that we know a lot of the behavior change has to happen in context, in situ. You know, Sophie has the benefit of being able to communicate above the line, which is great in France. But it's really important to remember when you want to change behaviors, think about where the decision is happening. Think about where the action takes place. That's where we should start playing. If you have the budget to do direct marketing and above the line marketing, we can also help there and guide better communications. But think about where the decision is made. And for responsible gambling and gaming, it's now, it's in the moment. Do I play more? Do I bet more? Or do I take a break? Maybe I can come back tomorrow or another day. Or maybe I should come with a friend and we'll kind of help each other regulate. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Ted. So I would like to thank Emma, Sophie, and Sonia for having shared their case with us today. And I would like to thank you, Ted, because you believe behavioral science could help even in a complex environment. I think we learned a lot about a category that often remains in shade, and I hope you would look at it from a different perspective. Thank you for your attention, and I will pass the floor to Eric and Ted.
Thanks. Grazie, ciao.
So now it is
Give me a break, please.
A well-deserved 1 hour break.
Good.
Before we will restart at 2 p.m. CET, 1 p.m. GMT, with, I think, a great conversation with Julia Dar, leader of behavioral science at the Boston Consulting Group, live from Boston.
Great.
So have a good lunch, have a good dinner, depending on where you are.
We'll check in with Adrian. I'm expecting a balloon, Adrian. We have a balloon. We have a balloon. I was expecting one thing. So we'll be back. Adrian will be back after the break. We allow him to have some lunch and rest his hands.
Or dinner.
Or dinner. For our friends in Asia, I think it's good night to you. We'll hope you'll watch the other sessions. And in the morning, it's morning in the Americas, so we'll have our friends and colleagues and our next speaker calling in from Boston starting in 1 hour. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.